The bucket of soapy water tipped over, soaking my knees as I froze, heart pounding like a war drum. The crown prince of Orin, all golden hair and storm-gray eyes, stood over me, his shadow swallowing the candlelight. "Say it's only me," he whispered, voice low and dangerous, like a blade wrapped in velvet. I was nobody Elias Voss, a scrawny kid from the lower wards, scrubbing floors in the palace to keep my sister fed. The marble beneath me gleamed, reflecting my dirt-streaked face and the prince's polished boots. How did I end up here? Pinned by the gaze of Prince Cashin, heir to a kingdom that would rather see me dead than acknowledge what we felt. It started 3 months ago, in the dead of summer, when the palace buzzed with preparations for the solstice ball. I was 16, invisible to the nobles who swept through the halls in silks and jewels. My world was mops, rags, and the endless ache in my back. But Cashin noticed me. It was an accident. Really. I'd been cleaning the library's upper shelves, balancing on a rickety ladder, when a book slipped from my hands and landed square on his head. I braced for a lashing, but he just laughed, a sound like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Careful," he'd said, picking up the book. "This one's about forbidden love. Dangerous stuff." His grin was reckless, and something in me stirred something I didn't dare name. From then on, he found excuses to linger. He'd lean against door frames while I scrubbed, asking about my life, my dreams, things no one else cared to know. I told him about my sister, Lila, who drew pictures of stars on our crumbling walls, dreaming of a life beyond the wards. He listened, really listened, his eyes softening in a way that made my chest tight. But I knew the rules. A servant and a prince. It was a fairy tale for fools. Yet Cashin didn't care about rules. One night, under the library's arched ceiling, he pressed a book into my hands, a collection of poems about love that burned despite the world's scorn. "Read this," he said, his fingers brushing mine. "It's us." My breath caught, and I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that there was no us. But the truth was, I'd already memorized the way his voice dipped when he spoke my name, the way his laugh made the world feel less heavy. The palace wasn't kind to secrets, though. Whispers followed my servants, noticing how the prince sought me out, how his eyes lingered too long. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Thorne, caught me once, her lips curling. "Keep your head down, boy, or you'll lose it." I tried to listen, tried to avoid him, but Cashin was relentless. He'd find me in empty corridors, his presence like a spark in a dry forest. "Elias," he'd say, "stop running from me." And I want to scream that I wasn't running from him. I was running from the noose that waited if anyone found out. The solstice ball changed everything. The palace glittered, chandeliers casting light like scattered stars. I was tasked with cleaning the ballroom's edges, staying out of sight as nobles danced and schemed. Cashin was there, resplendent in royal blue, his smile a mask for the court. But when his eyes found mine across the room, the mask slipped. He crossed the floor, ignoring the gasps of lords and ladies, and pulled me into an alcove. "I can't do this anymore," he said, voice raw, pretending I don't see you, don't want you. My heart screamed to say it back, but fear choked me. "You're the prince," I whispered, "and I'm nothing." His hand cupped my face, warm and steady. "You're everything." Before I could protest, his lips met mine, soft and urgent, and for one reckless moment, the world was just us. But the world always intrudes. A gasp shattered the moment Lady Eleanor, the king's advisor, stood at the alcove's edge, her eyes wide with shock and something darker. "Your Highness," she said, voice dripping venom, "this is a mistake." Cashin stepped in front of me, his jaw tight. The only mistake is your interruption. She left, but I knew what was coming. The palace was a nest of vipers, and we'd just given them fangs. By morning, whispers had turned to accusations. The king summoned Cashin, and I was dragged to the servants' quarters. Mrs. Thorne's voice hissing in my ear, "You've doomed us all." Boy. I didn't see Cashin for days. The palace felt colder, the walls closing in. Lila noticed my silence, her small hands tugging at my sleeve. "What's wrong, Eli?" she asked, her drawings of stars scattered across our tiny room. I couldn't tell her the truth that I'd fallen for someone I could never have, that the kingdom might punish us both for it. Then, one night, he found me again. I was scrubbing the throne room's floor, the bucket sloshing as I worked. His footsteps echoed, and before I could stand, he was there, kneeling beside me, his hands on mine. "Say it's only me," he said, voice breaking. "Please, Elias." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the weight of the kingdom, the threat of exile, or worse, held my tongue. "Cashin," I said, my voice a whisper, "this will destroy us." He didn't flinch, then let it. The throne room was silent except for the drip of my spilled bucket. But Cashin's words echoed louder than any royal decree. "Let it," he'd said, as if we could burn down centuries of tradition with a single kiss. My hands trembled under his, the scrub brush forgotten, as I searched his eyes for a way out that didn't end in blood. But the palace had ears. By dawn, the king's council was in an uproar. I was summoned to the great hall, a place I'd only ever cleaned, never entered as a guest. The towering doors loomed like a guillotine. Inside, King Aldrich sat on his throne, his face carved from stone, while Cashin stood at his side, fists clenched. Lady Eleanor flanked the king, her smile sharp enough to cut. "Elias Voss," she said, my name sounding like a curse. "You stand accused of corrupting the crown prince." Corrupting. The word hit like a slap. I wanted to laugh, to scream that it was Cashin who'd chased me, who'd made my heart race with every stolen glance. But I was a servant, and servants didn't speak unless spoken to. Cashin, though, had no such restraint. "Enough," he snapped, stepping forward. "Elias hasn't done anything. This is about me." The king's eyes narrowed. "You are the future of Orin. Cashin, you will not throw it away for a boy who scrubs floors." The room gasped. But Cashin didn't waver. "I love him," he said, voice steady, and my heart stopped. He'd said it out loud. To the king, to the court, to the world. The hall erupted. Nobles shouted. Servants whispered. And Lady Eleanor's smile vanished. The king raised a hand, silencing them. "You will renounce this," he told Cashin, "or you will lose everything." Cashin looked at me, his eyes fierce and unyielding. "Then take it all." I was escorted out before I could speak, locked in a servant's cell beneath the palace. The stone walls were cold, the air thick with damp. I thought of Lila, alone in our shack, her star drawings fading without me to protect her. I thought of Cashin, facing a kingdom's wrath for daring to love me. I'd always known our feelings were a spark in a powder keg, but I hadn't expected it to ignite so fast. Hours later, the cell door creaked open. Not a guard, but Mira, a kitchen maid who'd always been kind to me. "They're planning to exile you," she whispered, slipping me a key. "The prince sent me. He says to run." Run. Leave Cashin to face this alone. I couldn't. But Lila, she needed me. I slipped out, heart pounding, and made my way to the wards. The streets were alive with gossip, the air thick with the scent of bread and desperation. Lila was waiting, her eyes wide. Eli, what's happening? She asked, clutching her drawings. I hugged her, promising I'd fix this, though I had no idea how. Back at the palace, Cassian was fighting his own war. He'd refused to back down, even when the king threatened to strip his title. I learned this from Mira, who risked everything to keep me updated. He's meeting with the council tonight, she said, her voice low. He's trying to change their minds. But Lady Eleanor's pushing for your arrest. I hid in the wards, moving between safe houses, my mind racing. Cassian's words, I love him, kept me going. But fear gnawed at me. What could we do against a kingdom? I wasn't just fighting for us. I was fighting for Lila, for every kid in the wards who dreamed of more. One night, I snuck back to the palace, driven by a reckless need to see him. The gardens were quiet, moonlight glinting off the roses. Cassian was there, waiting, his face pale but resolute. I thought you'd run, he said, pulling me close. I couldn't leave you, I admitted, my voice breaking. His arms tightened around me, and for a moment, we were just two boys, not a prince and a servant, not a scandal waiting to explode. But the garden wasn't empty. A guard's shout shattered the silence, and suddenly we were surrounded. By order of the king. One barked, swords drawn. Cassian pushed me behind him, but I stepped forward. If we were going down, we'd do it together. They dragged us to the council chamber, where Lady Eleanor waited, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Your Highness, she said, this ends now. Cassian's hand found mine, squeezing tight. It's only beginning, he said, and I felt the spark of hope, fragile but fierce, ignite in my chest. The council chamber was a battlefield of words, and Cassian was its fiercest warrior. His hand gripped mine as we faced the king and his advisors, their faces a mix of disgust and pity. Lady Eleanor's voice cut through the tension. This boy is a threat to the crown's honor, she said, pointing at me. He must be banished or worse. Cassian's voice rang out, clear and unshaken. If Elias goes, I go with him. The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. A prince abandoning his throne. It was unheard of. A crack in the foundation of Oren's monarchy. King Aldrich's face darkened. You would throw away your birthright for this? He asked, gesturing to me as if I were nothing more than the dirt on my clothes. I wanted to shrink, to disappear. But Cassian's grip anchored me. He's worth more than any crown, Cassian said, and my heart ached with the truth of it and the danger. The council debated for hours, their voices rising and falling like a storm. Some called for mercy, others for punishment. I stood there, a silent witness to my own fate, while Cassian fought for us both. He spoke of love, of justice, of a kingdom that could be better than its prejudices. I'd never seen him so alive, so unbreakable, even as the council tore into him. Finally, the king spoke. You have one chance. Cassian, renounce this folly, or you'll be stripped of your title and exiled. My stomach dropped. Exile meant leaving Oren, leaving Lila, leaving everything we knew. But Cassian didn't hesitate. Then exile us, he said, his voice steady. But know this, I'll never renounce him. The room erupted again, but the king raised a hand. So be it. Guards moved toward us, and I braced for chains. But Cassian's calm kept me steady. As they let us out, he whispered, We'll find a way. Elias. I promise. Exile didn't come immediately. They locked us in separate cells, giving the king time to decide our fate. I spent days in darkness, replaying Cassian's words, wondering if I'd ruined him. But Mira, ever loyal, smuggled notes between us, His were short. Scrawled in his elegant hand, "You're my home. Elias. We'll be free." I clung to those words. But fear gnawed at me. Lila was still in the wards, vulnerable without me. I begged Mira to check on her, and she returned with news that broke my heart. Lila was sick, a fever sweeping through the wards. I had to get to her, but the cell bars mocked me. Then, a miracle or a trap. One night, the cell door opened, and a hooded figure slipped inside. It was Jasper, a young guard who'd once shared a meal with me in the servants' kitchen. "The prince paid me," he whispered. "He's waiting in the old stables. Go now." I didn't question it. I ran, heart pounding, through the palace's hidden passages. The stables smelled of hay and freedom. And there was Cassian, his face bruised but defiant. "We're leaving," he said, pulling me into a fierce embrace. "But we need to get Lila first." We stole through the night, dodging patrols, until we reached the wards. Lila was burning with fever, her star drawings clutched in her hands. "Eli," she mumbled. "You came back." I carried her, her small body light as a bird, while Cassian led the way to a safe house Mira had arranged. But safety was an illusion. Dawn brought soldiers to the wards, their boots shaking the ground. Lady Eleanor had anticipated our escape. "They're hunting us," Cassian said, his eyes scanning the horizon. "But I have a plan." He told me about a ship waiting at the coast, a merchant vessel willing to smuggle us out for a price. Cassian had sold his royal ring to pay for it, trading his birthright for our freedom. I wanted to protest, to tell him he was giving up too much. But his smile stopped me. "You and Lila are worth it," he said, and I believed him. We moved under cover of darkness, Lila cradled in my arms, Cassian's hand steady on my shoulder. The wards were a maze, but we navigated it, driven by desperation and love. At the edge of the city, though, our luck ran out. Soldiers blocked the road, Lady Eleanor at their head. "You thought you could run," she sneered. Cassian stepped forward, unarmed but unafraid. "Let them go," he said. "Take me instead." My heart screamed in protest. But before I could speak, Lila stirred, her voice weak but clear. "Don't give up, Eli. Not for me." Her words were a spark, and I knew we couldn't surrender. Not now. Not ever. The soldiers closed in, their swords glinting under the pale dawn. Lady Eleanor's smirk was a promise of ruin. But Cassian stood tall, his hand still on my shoulder, grounding me. Lila's fevered words echoed in my mind. "Don't give you Pand." I knew this was our last stand. Cassian's plan was reckless, but it was all we had. "Run for the ship," he whispered, his eyes locked on mine. "I'll hold them off." Before I could argue, he kissed me, fierce and fleeting, then turned to face the soldiers. "You want me?" he shouted. "Come get me." He charged, not at the soldiers, but past them, drawing their attention. It was chaos shouts, clashing steel, and the pounding of boots. I hesitated, heart tearing, but Lila's weight in my arms forced me to move. I ran, dodging through alleys, the coast so close I could smell the salt. The ship was there, a weathered merchant vessel bobbing in the harbor. The captain, a grizzled man named Harrow, grabbed my arm. "Where's the prince?" he growled. I couldn't answer, my eyes fixed on the city, where shouts still echoed. Harrow cursed but helped me board, Lila trembling as I laid her on a cot. Minutes felt like hours. I stood at the ship's rail, praying Cassian would appear. The crew was ready to sail, but I refused to let them. Then, a figure broke through the fog. Cassian, bloodied but alive, sprinting toward us. Behind him, soldiers gave chase, But he was faster, driven by something stronger than fear. He leaped aboard just as the ship pulled away, collapsing into my arms. "Told you I'd make it," he gasped, his smile weak but real. I held him, tears mixing with the sea spray. As the shore faded, Lila stirred, her fever breaking, and whispered, "We're free, Eli." Freedom wasn't what I'd imagined. The ship took us to a distant port, a small coastal town where no one knew our names. Cashin was no longer a prince, just a man with calloused hands and a heart too big for the world. We found a small house, its walls bare but for Lila's star drawings, which she hung with pride. She grew stronger, her laughter filling the gaps the palace had left in us. The kingdom didn't forget us, though. Whispers of the disgraced prince reached even this far. But they were just stories now, not threats. Cashin and I built a life, not grand like the palace, but ours. We work him at a bakery, him as a carpenter, our hands rough, but our hearts full. At night, we'd sit by the sea, his head on my shoulder, and talk about the future. "I'd do it all again," he'd say, and I'd kiss him, knowing I would too. One evening, a letter arrived, smuggled by Mira. The king was ill, and the council was fracturing. Some called for Cashin's return, others for reform. Oren was changing, slowly, painfully, because of us, because we dared to love. I looked at Cashin, his face lit by the sunset, and thought of the boy I'd been, scrubbing floors, never dreaming of this. "Say it's only me," I said, echoing his words from that night in the throne room. He smiled, pulling me close. "It's always been you." Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy, scarred, and hard won, but it was ours. And in that small house by the sea, with Lila's stars above us, it was enough. The world might not be ready for us, but we were ready for it. And that was the truest victory of all.